Morning all, and welcome back to another segment in Books I Can't Recommend Enough, and which may or may not have changed the way I see the world. And turning to Count Zero today, as promised, this is the second installment in William Gibson's Sprawl series, or Sprawl Trilogy, which takes place about 7 years after Neuromancer. And it is a very good read. I found it was a very good second installment after Neuromancer, which really kind of just blew the doors off and had a huge influence on cyberpunk literature and the cultural aesthetics that came with it, as shown in movies and uh, other novels, of course, graphic novels. Yeah. And for those unfamiliar, I would say simply check out Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Johnny Mnemonic, which is actually based on one of Gibson's short stories. Anywho, um, well, first of all, slight update on me here. As you can see, my hand is getting a lot better. Still swollen, but yeah, can't still can't make a fist. The bird test, yeah, is about yay good. Eh. And these are the other ones there. Yeah, still pretty tight, but it is going down. I can tell. So that's good news. Anyway, to get to this story, this definitely it not only does it contain a lot of the famous elements there that Gibson is well known for, and which he demonstrated amply in Neuromancer. It also does kind of preview stuff that he would touch on a little bit more in his Big End trilogy, which came many, many years later there, around the early 2000s, and I believe the last in the series was published around 2011, 12. Anyway, the name, as it states, Count Zero Interrupt. On receiving an interrupt, decrement the counter to zero. So it's sort of a play on words. Count Zero is a character in this game, a freelance hacker, and his name apparently refers to this computer operation uh, term. Um, However, I have it on some authority. I remember reading reviews about this before, reading some storyboards about it, and learning that that's not an actual computer protocol. Could have been, yes, made up around the time, but that Gibson was famous for doing that there. He coined the term cyberspace and the Matrix, both of which referred to, the, as he called it, consensual hallucination. That was the digital world that people would tap into. And so, the sort of cliched thing about cyberspace looking like these neon buildings and so forth. And, people who are interacting with it, going full VR with the goggles and the haptics and the hand, the gloves, and yeah, how you would jack in or flip, just hit the switch, and the electrodes attached to your head would suddenly start sending your mind directly into the matrix, or vice versa. Anyway, so, as I recall, and I've got I've got an old review I did in front of me just to try to recap, because it's been a while since I read this. But yeah, it involves a plot that is very similar to Neuromancer, just from the meat and bones perspective. You've got a corporate mercenary, freelance hacker, and the very rich company that is an individual that is paying him, and how his roads converge also with the daughter of a major company, a major software developer who's experimenting in biochips and biotechnology. And all this stuff was just very cutting edge thought at the time when this book was first published. I mean, today these things are talked about in just regular conventional biotechnology circles. It is an industry now, and of course, the whole premise of biotech and biomimicry and so forth is developing technology that mimics biology or even uses it. Whether it's synthetic cells and synthetic DNA, it's like the proteins are an extremely good encoder of information, and they can self-configure and change their configuration in order to adapt to various scenarios. So it's like, yeah, they're the ultimate technology. Nature really knows what it's doing when it designed all that. Um, there are, of course, downsides like cancer. That is, proteins and cells reconfigured to just grow out of control. But, much like computers, there are viruses sometimes. So it starts with a mercenary named Turner who has been hired by a company after nearly dying, and he is trying to figure out his life because, of course, he's after a near-death experience, one begins to question what they do, and he is recruited. This is going to sound a little like Rambo, but for one last job, and it's from scientist named Mitchell, who's contracted him from a country called Mass, and he is saying that he wants to defect from his job and join another rival company. And so you have this really cool scene where basically Turner and his uh, partners in crime here, they are setting up this whole diversion there involving an airship and basically aerial artillery to attack this facility as a way of distracting so that they can, slip the guy out. But what they find is it's not the scientist, it's his daughter. And she has the biochips that he's developed in her brain. And what those do is it allows her to slip into cyberspace willingly. And here too, we have another bold prediction of a time when through internet connectivity, wireless connections, a person could have a biochip, something that is friendly and compatible with our natural biology, implanted in their brain. And then that way, you want to hop online, boom, you do it with a simple thought. And through various means, displays contacts or whatever that allow you to see this, or possibly just, feeding information through the optic nerve. It's really very cool. And this was 1986 that he wrote about this. So pretty cutting edge stuff at the time, and just conceptual, not actually being developed. Anyway, he goes with her, and then the attack goes off, and they flee together to South America, where his brother resides, and he stays with them for a little bit in order to come up with a plan. And meanwhile, and I should note that, Mitchell himself, the scientist, he stayed behind and sacrificed himself on purpose in order to get the daughter out. So, they're fleeing to South America is partly due to the fact that this job went terribly south. And second, you have the disgraced art dealer and Marley Krushkova, who's been hired by the fabulously wealthy man named Vivek, or no, Virek, and he is interested in finding the maker of these mysterious art boxes because apparently they contain what appear to be um, biotech inspired elements. And these boxes are apparently based on the artwork of Cornell, who did this very same thing. It put all these carefully arranged items in a box to tell a story, and it's really very novel. So basically, he hires her, and in this you have another Gibson classic, SimStim. In order to do this interview, Marley walks into a booth, grabs hold of a like an electrode, grabs hold of it, and then whoosh, she's transported into this virtual meeting space. Because as we learn, Virek is currently floating around in a tank in somewhere in Scandinavia. And the reason is, he's trying to cheat death. He's got his body's being resurrected there. So gene therapy or whatever. And so, this is something that comes up here where Gibson wrote that the rich at this point in time were no longer human. because, yeah, transhumanism has become a reality where people can just cheat death through various technological enhancements or therapies, and there you go. Now, the interesting thing is her path, the path that she's on now, is going to take her to the space station, the via Straylight and the no Freeside. Freeside is the space station. Via Straylight is like its main axis that you people will go and shop and stay and play on. And this is the station that was owned previously by the Tessier Ashpool clan. And it has sort of fallen into disuse because after the first one, after Neuromancer was freed and Wintermute was united with him, he became this really sort of all-power digital force within the cyberspace. And the Ashpool sort of fell on hard times. Anyway, next thread. You have a New Jersey boy named Bobby Newark who has the hacker alias Count Zero. And he is attempting to test some what's called black ice. And in Gibson's world, ice refers to ICE, intrusion countermeasure electronics. So when you have programs that are designed to get around these, they're called icebreakers. Oh, guy had a way with words. So this black ice that he's experimenting with was given to him by another hacker friend who has been in the game longer, named Two a Day, and it was pawned off because it came from a questionable source. So while Bobby's in the Matrix there, while he's in this near-death state, he comes into contact with these apparitions, and they are called Loa, and basically they're personifications of the Haitian voodoo gods, part of the voodoo faith, and as it comes to be known, is that this is basically what Neuromancer did once he became his full self. He divided himself into separate digital constructs that are now working their way around the Matrix, and one of these gods saves his life after the Black Ice nearly killed him, and yeah, and apparently the ice itself, the program, and here's where he sort of connects to things. It was developed by Mass, and well, as another twist, the daughter, right? Those implants in her mind. She is particularly concerned about Loa, these Loa, because she's in contact with them regularly. And so the story is obviously very interesting in how all these threads come together, and we find out that, yeah, Virak is the one sort of trying to get all this technology and figure out where it's all coming from. He wants access to it because it's, his competitor's technology. He wants it for himself, and because the biotech that he is seeking here is basically what's going to allow him to live forever and resurrect himself. And that we also learned that Mitchell, the scientist, was not such a huge genius. It was the Loa guiding him, telling him how to build this up. And last, because I'm giving far too much away here, I feel, Marley comes to Freeside and finds out that, in fact, the boxes are being made by a machine up there that is being controlled by the Loa. And yes, this is sort of where it's revealed that the first fully functioning AI in the universe, or in the course of human history, there are in fact hints that there are more out there in the first book, and the nearest one's at Alpha Centauri. But yes, this fully functioning AI broke itself apart into several constructs, and it chose the Haitian gods because they seemed most appropriate to its task. And that basically so it wouldn't be alone in cyberspace. And yes, it was developing bits of biotech and sending them to Earth. And this is what caught the attention of Virak and started him down this path of, I need to find the person who made the technology and so forth. But yeah, it all comes back to Neuromancer breaking apart into Palau and how this has now affected him. And really altered the course of events of life on Earth, because obviously you can see multiple people are being sort of played with. And this too is similar to Neuromancer in the sense that it was there too, that Wintermute, that separate digital construct that was sort of Neuromancer's yin to its yang. Um, yeah, it was running the show and hiring all these different freelancers and influencing events. And so Gibson manages to do that again very effectively, and he weaves them all together. And so this of course is are the main strengths of the book. The one downside I found, or the one major downside, is that the ending does kind of get a little anticlimactic, right? This sometimes happens in Gibson's work, or where you just all builds up, and then there's a sort of quick resolution, and okay. Despite that, it's like the read itself, everything leading up to that point and after are really quite good. So I do highly recommend it. One would also get the sense from reading these books here, he does have um, the really megalomaniacal portrayal of wealthy moguls, and just how much ridiculous amounts of control and power they have, and how their ambitions are just so big. They do kind of sometimes sound like Bond villains. However, you look out in the world today, you look at, I don't know, Elon Musk and others like him, and it's like, yeah, no, this is not so far-fetched an idea anymore, is it? A world where the people are divided between the rich and the poor, and the cyberpunk's all about high tech and the street mixing. And yeah, and how, yeah, everyday resistance, right? Hackers, freelancers, and all this stuff, how people find or as Gibson said, the street finds its own use for things, right? They use these to fight back. So, yeah, while some of it would feel just a little bit over the top, it is certainly fitting with cyberpunk literature, and in today's world, I'd say it feels just about damn right. There's a lot of that going on. And so everything else about it, the themes, the setting, the grittiness, all that stuff, it makes it just really interesting and fun. So yeah, this is another one I highly recommend. The third installment, which is called Mona Lisa Overdrive. Now that book I felt was the weakest in the series, but I'm going to give it a review because, of course, it's still good and still worth reading, especially if you're, a completionist. You want to see how the story ends. And that one, in particular, I saw a lot of echoes with the Big End trilogy, because whereas the Sprawl up until this point has focused very much, the Sprawl Trilogy has focused very much on the Sprawl itself and Freeside and Orbit. Yes, at this point, the setting starts to shift to London, and it's getting into like fashion and iconography and advertising, stuff like that. And so, yeah, clearly this is something that Gibson himself, he was developing a fascination for, or always had been a fascination for, and he started exploring that in earnest in Mona Lisa Overdrive. And, of course, other cool things happen. Um, and, yes, we'd never get to see Case, or Casey, from the first book. That the protagonist there, at the end of Neuromancer, Gibson wrote, he never saw Molly again. Molly we see again, because she is rather important and a very cool character. And yeah, basically it's like, yeah, this guy did his job. Now Count Zero is sort of like the sub in here, because he starts off as a rookie, but comes of age throughout the story, and by the third book, he is somebody rather important. Not to give too much of a preview there, but yeah, you can expect that in the next review. However, in the meantime, there's also, as I seem to be sort of hopping around through the various trilogies here, there's Virtual Light, which is Butterfingers. the first installment in the Bridge trilogy, and that's something that I will be getting into in the near future. I think I might like to finish off one or more of the other series that I've been getting into, like the Big End trilogy. Spook Country is the next installment there, and it is quite good. But yeah, a bit of a preview on that. The Bridge trilogy takes place on the West Coast, and it is in San Francisco. And rather than being in the cyberpunk universe of the Sprawl trilogy, it was the 90s that Gibson was writing this particular trilogy, and it showed a very interesting shift because like by the 90s, science fiction and some of the more predominant genres, they went from being cyberpunk to what's called post cyberpunk. And that's sort of in keeping with the whole postmodernist movement, which, ugh. But yeah, post cyberpunk had a lot of differences, a lot of interesting things to say. And it wasn't so much the focus on high tech and low life. That was the that's the definition of cyberpunk. High tech meets low life. It wasn't so much that as rather a focus on the ambiguous effects of technology on society. And there would be a lot of other interesting motifs like a disintegrated, a balkanized United States, and yeah, a cure for AIDS. And how, yes, the big one did happen, and this is part of sort of the background of the stories he's created there. So, yes, all that, love to get into. Checking my stack, I've also got, yes, Children of Dune. Yeah, that'll be next. The third installment in the Dune franchise. I definitely want to get into that one because that originally was Frank Herbert's sort of showstopper. He had all these elements that he was originally writing into the first book, and yeah, he decided to flush it out, spread it out, right? And as we saw with Dune Messiah, right? Paul goes off into the desert. His Chani, his wife, has died in childbirth, and two babies are born, preborn, named Ganima, the daughter, and Leto the second, the son. And so, yeah, book three, things are really, really quite interesting, and there's some really very cool thinking and revelations going on there, and more development of Herbert's massive universe. So, stay tuned for that. Anyway, thank you very much, and see you next time.